The Transform Your Mind radio hour is a journey through the mind, offering fresh approaches to old problems that plague the African-American woman and youth. Host Myrna Young, life coach, and Arifa Youssef, social worker, discuss topics such as relationships, depression, the single life, how to supercharge your marriage, poverty mindset, and more. Tune in every Wednesday at 5 p.m. and transform your mind to transform your life.
Welcome to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio hour and podcast. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Morris Young, and today I am so pleased that in the guest chair is the one and only Keshia Morris, my daughter. She is coming to us today talking on the census and mass incarceration, and the project manager of Common Cause. So we are going to be discussing not only the census, but specifically how to use your energy to transform your career. Welcome, Keshia.
Hi. Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes. It is my distinct pleasure. All right. So the reason that I wanted to share Keshia with you today, I know that most of you who listen to me are regulars, think you probably know her because I talk about her all the time. Almost every week I have some kind of inference. I can say, my daughter this, my daughter that. So, yeah. But recently she has been all over the media. She wrote this amazing article that was published in the Miami Herald. And in this article, she talked about our personal journey to becoming permanent residents in the United States, and why the question on the census asking, are you a citizen, would have been a negative effect on our democracy. Now, after this article was published, she kept sending me links to new podcast interviews every week. And of course, as the loving mom that I am, I listened to them all. I was immediately struck by her growth, not only as a speaker, but on her knowledge about the political climate in the U.S. and how really God changed her skill, so that now she is doing an excellent job in her chosen career. So since this show is about transformation, I wanted to bring her on so that she can share her transformation with you. And then, of course, we're going to get to, the census and the work that she does for Common Cause. But before we get to that part, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Lifted by Purpose. I thought this was an apt sponsorship because we are going to be talking about purpose on this show. Lifted by Purpose has many programs for youth, and one of them is the Art and Mental Health Wellness Program. So listen for more on Lifted by Purpose at our break. All right, so now let's get on to the story. Before we can talk on what God has done in Keshia's life, as far as her chosen career, she chose me to be her mom. I mean, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of all that, but, I live a very conscious life, and I know that when our spirit decides to come into this body, we actually choose our parents, and we choose our parents for a specific reason, and that is to help us achieve our purpose. So she chose me first to be her mother, and I knew from the moment that she was conceived that she was born to do great things, or at least I told myself that. She was conceived on my honeymoon and was born 9 months later on my 30th birthday. And without even being conscious at the time, because I was not living in this space, I knew that I said that she was born for a great purpose. Now, one of the things as a Christian that I live by is the principle of generational increase. Now, I came from lack. I was born in a very poor country in Guyana, my mom immigrated to Canada. But I came through the journey of lack, and one of the first things I wanted to do was to provide a generational increase for my children, so their lives should be better than mine. And somehow I got the impression that in order to do that, I needed to become an American citizen. Now, my children were Canadian, I was a Canadian, and there's nothing wrong with Canada as a country, but, that's just how I felt. I felt that, a lot of people want to come to the United States, and because they come here because this is where dreams are made. And my perception was that I wanted to be an American, and I wanted my kids to be American because I felt that they can have a better impact on the world. So we came over to the United States, and Keshia went through high school as an undocumented alien. The beauty of this country that we live in right now is that children do not require papers to go to school, not to public school anyway. They don't require papers until they get to higher education. So, Keshia went through high school without papers, but as soon as she graduated from school and wanted to get to college, then they asked her those papers. And I said, well, you're going to college until we figure this out. And I paid 2 years of out-of-state fees for her to go to college. I can only afford one class, and she took one class, but at least she was in college. I got married again in 2006 and sponsored her, and she became a permanent resident at that time and a documented immigrant. She went on to receive her Bachelor's of Arts and started out in her intended career as a psychologist. So she was in the middle of that 2-year working on her psychology career, wanting to get her master's in that field. And one day she was listening to this audiobook written by Nelson Mandela called A Long Walk to Freedom. And she had what we might call a Damascus experience. If you remember that from the Bible, where, Paul was, heading to Damascus when God interrupted him and gave him a new purpose, blinded him, and sent him on his journey. So Keshia experienced something similar, where she came out of listening to that book with new intention, a new purpose, a new drive. And this is where I want to pick up the story from. So, Keshia, tell our listeners what exactly happened that day when your whole trajectory on your life changed. The moment that it happened, what exactly happened there?
Well, let me just start off by saying that you tell my story much better than I do. I'll have to take some notes. I'll have to listen to this again and take some notes. So thank you for that wonderful introduction and, just laying out for folks kind of how I kind of got to, the moment where I decided that I wanted to do something new with my career. I had always thought that I was going to be a psychologist as a child. People kept telling me that, you're great at giving people advice. So I'm like, okay, I might as well make a career out of this and, kind of try to achieve the American dream. Psychologists make a lot of money. So I was, thinking that, that was, what I wanted to do until, I started getting into books and, I listened to Nelson Mandela's A Long Walk to Freedom. And, in the very I would say the very first few chapters of that book, I feel like it changed me and changed my trajectory almost immediately. It was also the time of the sequester, where the government was shut down, because how I interpreted it as is that, you know, wealthy special interests were getting in the way of government and getting in the way of, you know, our lawmakers being able to do their jobs, which I didn't feel like was right. So I felt an extreme tug to try to do something about it. And
nice.
I immediately, you know, had that conversation with you, Mom. And, you know, it was at a time where you, I think, had just finished your program with the University of Miami to become a life coach. And I was one of your first coachees.
Yeah, well, that's the next part of the story. But I just wanted to find out. All right, so let me circle back to what you just said. So, listening to that book, you felt this tug, and the tug that she's talking about is, you know, God always plants something in us, and there's something that tugs on you or pulls on you or gets your interest when it's in front of you. Almost the same thing happened to me when I became a life coach. It was just immediate. I saw the word life coach in a newspaper, and I decided, you know, that's what I'm supposed to be. But of course, you know, that was, I was, what was I, 50 or something at the time? So, you know, Keshia did her the right way. You know, how old were you at that time, Keshia? 24, 22, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I think I was about 23 or 24. I don't know.
Right, yeah, you're pretty young, right, exactly. So that's the time if anybody is going to make a change in their trajectory is then, you know, not too much time had watered under the bridge. But yes, so...
Can I jump in, Mom? Okay. I just want to say that, you know, at that time for me, I felt like it was too late. Even though I was only 23 or 24, I had already gotten or invested 4 years already in really $30,000 worth in student loans, and, you know, getting a bachelor's degree in psychology. I already started master's degree credits, which are not inexpensive, to get my psychology degree. So yeah, I mean, I was young, but it still took, I feel like, a little bit to get me to that point of deciding to make a change. So,
well, that's even more important in the story, because the fact that it wasn't an easy decision makes it even much more profound. Because, like you just said, you had invested 4 years into a program, and that you felt that it was your career. You knew that it was going to make a lot of money. You knew that you had the aptitude for that career. And then you took a 180-degree turn to something completely different with no experience. But you did it because you felt the God wanted you. That was the trajectory. And I think your exact words at the time is that Nelson Mandela, his life was to help people and not just himself. And somehow you felt that becoming a political advocate and helping the country and doing something for other people was much more important than, you know, a psychologist. So all right, so that was the moment. It was a book that got your attention, that you felt this pull, And yes, what happened next is actually very important in the story. So, yes, as Keshia mentioned, I was a new life coach at the time, and as a life coach, when you're getting your certification, you have to coach people. You can't pass a class unless you coach people. So everybody I knew were getting coaching sessions, including Keshia. So we've had lots of coaching sessions before, talking about relationships, talking about, maybe even career choices. I don't remember, but mostly about, what she wants out of her life. So she called me and says she wanted to schedule a coaching session. And I remember sitting down and listening to her. And it's really interesting as well how everybody operates at their level of consciousness. So which is why you say there's no bad parents, or there's no bad teachers, there's no bad husbands, or no bad anything, because people always operate at their level of consciousness at a time. And maybe like a week before this conversation with Keshia, I read somewhere that when someone comes to you with their goals and dreams, you should never knock it down. So I'm listening to her tell me that she wants to become a political advocate, and she wants to, stop big businesses from, what is the word you're just talking about there? How big businesses were using their money to, lobbyists. I think that's what you're talking about, right? Lobbyists and all that. I'm thinking, right. I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, she doesn't have the aptitude to do that. There's no way that she can make a difference, one little person going after all these people with millions and billions of dollars. But that's not what I said out loud. I said out loud, hey, go after it. Let's sit down and make a plan. What do you have to do in order to become what you're saying that is now your purpose? So we talked about she has got to go to Toastmasters and learn to speak. She's got to join some grassroots organizations in the political field and get some experience. But one of the first things she needed to do was to apply to schools to now have a political science degree instead of a psychology degree. And she applied to 3 schools. One of the schools that was her top school, she felt that she had 0 chance of getting in there, American University, and she got in, right? Then when she, before she graduated, one of the companies that she admired, Common Cause, I still remember the day when she was doing something on the computer, and her professor sent her this note about this internship, and she dropped everything that she was doing and applied for the internship at Common Cause, got it. And then when she graduated, Common Cause offered her a job. So everything lined up for her. She got her inspiration. She had a mom that was able to support her. She got into the right schools. She got the right job. And that is one way that you can know if God is in the mix, right? If you if he's opening doors for you, and God certainly opened, your doors, and has been directing you to where you are today. But there's lots of our listeners right now that would not have it as smooth as you did. So my next question to you is, what advice would you give our listeners who face obstacles, no family support? They apply to schools and not accepted. Maybe they're a young mother and they have a kid and they can't find a babysitter, or they have financial problems, what would you tell them to push past their obstacles?
I would first say believe in the vision. Believe in the tug. Believe in your abilities. believe in yourself, really. There will always be obstacles. I know how my mom just laid it out. It sounds like I just got handed this. But, you know, I mean, there were absolutely obstacles. There were absolutely obstacles. But in the grand scheme of things do line up when you believe in yourself and you believe in the vision. I would say that one of my biggest obstacles is learning how to speak to people. I am by nature introverted person who really doesn't like to make really any waves. And so, you know, being able to get my message across to folks is something that I really had to work on. It is nerve-wracking, for sure. And
I have a question on that too. But I mean, that is, I have a question on that because you have really transformed yourself in that. And of course, I have the front row seat to all your struggles. But I'm talking about initially, just initially meaning just starting, you know, not changing yourself to fit the role, which is different. Somebody that got a pull, got a tug, and, you know, it doesn't line up. I mean, they have no support, zero.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you truly believe that you have this tug from God to do, you know, X, Y, Z, then I feel like you should continue to push yourself. You know, all things work for good is something that I continue to tell myself, and you know, and I feel like that is something that, you know, folks should, you know, try to live by, even if, you know, this, you know, obstacle that's in your way will not always be there. And we have a God that's greater than all obstacles, and that is able to move mountains. And so I would put my faith in that.
Good job. Awesome. Yeah, and I like the way you say that, you know, I said it was just handed to you. But yeah, you know, if I were to say that you handled obstacles very well, you know, the first thing would have been, you know, moving to Washington, D.C. and not knowing anyone and going into political science with absolutely no background on it. So I would say you were courageous, and courage is an important thing. You know, you have to have courage, and you definitely had courage, and so that's the first step. Yeah, believe in yourself and have courage and have faith. So I like that. You said several things on believing in yourself. Believe in the vision, believe in yourself, and believe in God. Right? Believe that you have heard him, and everything works out for your good. Love it. Awesome. Well, all right. So I've given you the background on, you know, what happened with Keshia when she decided that she wanted to do something for the world, like a Nelson Mandela. And so what we're going to do in our next segment is we are going to talk about, you saw the background, and I've laid the foundation for you for how she got to this point. And now it's absolutely amazing what is happening for her and her vision and purpose in this particular moment. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back because I know you want to hear this. For all of you who are looking at a career and looking at a career that it's not just about making money, but a career that feeds you, you might want to stick around. So we'll be right back.
Are you a youth 16 to 29 years of age, struggling with mental health challenges? Are you looking for a space to receive support, resources, and connect with other people living with similar challenges? Then reach out to Lifted by Purpose, an arts-based organization with a focus on mental health. Contact Lifted by Purpose in Toronto, Canada at 416-391-5270 or find us online at www.liftedbypurpose.com.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio hour and podcast. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Morris-Young, and today in the guest chair is my daughter, Keshia Marie Morris, and Keshia is on the show today to talk about how to use your energy to transform your career. So in the last segment, I gave you some background information on our journey into the immigration world and Keshia's journey into doing what she's doing right now. And right now, she is the project manager for the Census and mass incarceration at Common Cause. And she's been getting a lot of attention these days. And, in fact, I said to her, you know what? I bet President Trump knows of you because you're fighting directly with him. And she laughed. She says, he doesn't know about me. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're on this fight on the census question was a fight directly with the president. So I'm glad that you're now a citizen, actually. So he can't tell you to go back. All right. So the Trump administration has been very unfriendly towards immigrants and undocumented aliens and intended to use the question, are you a citizen, on the 2020 census to instill fear in the non-citizens. And that was their plan to set up something called gerrymandering, which is a big word for actually designing the, you can probably say it better than me, but designing the districts so that the Republicans have an advantage. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that is true. So gerrymandering is, as you said, is manipulating districts to give one party an advantage over the other. We have definitely seen a lot of gerrymandering being done by Republicans, but we do absolutely know that Democrats do it too when they have power.
Okay, awesome. All right. So Trump's, though, intention was to help himself win by setting up these districts that in favor of himself. I actually don't get that, and I know I'm going to have one of my questions. My next question is going to be that. But before we get to that part, I want to say that Common Cause fought the president, and for this question to be removed from the census, and won. So explain for the listeners what was the importance of having this question removed from the census, and what exactly the census does for our democracy.
Absolutely. So I will start with the first question first. So what is the census? So the Constitution mandates that a census or a count of all people that live within these United States be counted for apportionment purposes every 10 years. So every 10 years, the Census Bureau takes account of everyone that lives here. So, and that is including illegal aliens, that is including children. If you have a newborn that, is born in April or April 2020, then that child should get counted in the census. And what this does for our democracy is it apportions the amount of seats we have in Congress. So there are 435 seats in the House of Representatives, and those 435 seats are distributed based on population size. So right now, about each congressional district is about a little over 700,000 people, or represents about a little over 700,000 people. And so, if we have a state like Florida that has about maybe 6 to 9 million people in it, but yet, only, say 9 million people, so but say only 8 million people were counted in the census, that means that Florida would get less congressional representation than it actually truly deserves, because, 1 million people were not counted. So, and that is kind of the ploy that we saw with a question on citizenship being added to the 2020 census form. So the Trump administration wanted to add this last-minute question to the 2020 census. I say last minute because usually each question is tested and vetted thoroughly for about 3 years before a question is added. It has to go through Congress and go through approval. There's a lot of approval processes. But the Trump administration came in and decided they weren't going to do any of that and just announced that they were going to add this question to the census. What Census Bureau researchers have found is that if this question were to be added, about 6.5 million people would not answer their census form. So advocates like Common Cause, but really across the board, millions of people stood up and said that this is wrong and we're not going to stand for it, and we took the case all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court sided with us. They said that, the Trump administration cannot add this question, but what they said is that, the reason that they said that they were going to add the question was false. They called it contrived. And so
of course it was contrived. Right.
Right. So when you say you're going to do something, you have to you have to explain why you're going to do it. And that is a part of the law, and that can't be something contrived. It can't be false. It has to be the truth. So the Supreme Court said, your reasoning for adding this question was not the truth, so you can't add it.
Everybody was in on that, and I think that's, again, why you've been getting so much press on this, because you're the project manager for this. So everybody wanted to talk to you, and everybody wanted to find out what, and I listened to your interviews, and we've been here about 20 years, so 19 years. So we only had one census, and they had to send me like 3 letters before I filled the thing in. But listening to you, I understand that it's the law, and so I learned a lot about it by just listening to your interviews. So I'm glad that, Common Cause 1, we don't have time to get into the fact that President Trump and his administration is still trying to finagle their way, because he issued an executive order and they're still trying to work this. He doesn't accept defeat very well. So, but we don't have the time to get into that. But what I wanted to know from my own personal interest is I heard you say in one of your interviews that the data that comes from the census it's illegal for anybody to first of all, you're saying that 6.5 million people would not have answered that because they might be afraid that someone will come to their door and realize that they were undocumented aliens or something and send them back home. But what you said is that information is never presented in such a way that somebody can know who filled out the form. And if they were going to actually use information from the data, they will use the information as a collective. So why do you guys think that 6.5 million people wouldn't have filled this out? Is it because of that information or what? And second to that, what does the Trump administration? Okay, I think you answered that. You answered that about the 435 seats in representation. That's what they were hoping for, not necessarily to send people back, right?
Well, I mean, the answer to that is twofold.
Okay.
The question or any answer that you respond on the census, as you said, cannot be used to harm any person. So that means that that data can't be sent to ICE to use to enforce immigration law. It can't even be sent to your landlord if you have too many people, living in your household. However, what the Trump administration wanted to do is that, that information doesn't always get communicated, right? And not always, and especially with the Trump administration, people don't trust that this administration is going to follow the law.
Right.
So,
true.
People are fearful. So it's better just not to have the question whatsoever. But as you said, the Trump administration has given up on their effort to add a question onto the census to the 2020 census, but they are now, the Trump administration Trump has now issued an executive order to get administrative data on citizenship to be collected for the purpose of redistricting. So right now, and how it has been since the 3/5 compromise, where Black Americans were counted as 3/5 of the human being, since that has not been the case anymore. We have always used the number of total residents that have been in the country, or that have been in the country and been in the state to draw districts. And so what the Trump administration wants to challenge is having districts drawn for and only use the citizen voting age population. So anybody that's a citizen and anybody that's over the age of 18, they would like to be counted in apportionment and redistricting districts. And so, we are fighting for this not to be the case. But it absolutely will be challenged through litigation if any state proceeds to try to do this. But
to do it.
What they are doing is through litigation for that common cause found, we know that if districts are drawn that only encompass citizens and those over the age of 18, it significantly impacts districts for Republicans. So the advantage is for Republicans and white folks, really.
Yeah.
And so, what we are fighting is to make sure that everyone is counted in districts.
Yep. Well, listen, I liked the fact that you said it's not just common cause that's fighting, but there's a lot of companies that are fighting the fact that organizations, I should say, the fact that everybody wants to talk to you on their radio program and they're, about this is because nobody, a lot of the Democrats and a lot of the non-white folks knows that, what the intention is to snuff out, the non-citizens, to snuff out, our impact on government. And let me list a few of the interviews that you've been on. You have been on Unrig the System podcast with Alex Wardlaw, and the episode is called Bipartisan Solutions for Ending the Prison Industrial Complex Once and for All. I guess he spoke to you there on because you're also the project manager for mass incarceration. Again, the fact that felons can't vote always benefits the Republicans because, again, a lot of the the non-citizens or black people, I should say, are in the prison system. So that was one interview you did. You did an interview with Carrie on Friends, the Caribbean American podcast, and her angle, again, was for the Caribbean people that are in this country. That's where we came from. Or at least I came from. Sorry, you're Canadian. The Caribbean American, undocumented or non-citizens. So she wanted to talk to you on that. And then you had a really nice interview with the Real News Network. That was really beautiful. And then you did another one, Inside the Issues, on Sirius FM radio channel 126. So, yes, and now you're doing my show. Awesome. All right. So I'm getting into the party here. All right. So, all right. So let me see. So, quickly explain. I heard you talk on the fact that there's 5 questions on the census, and you also talked about the fact that, I think you mentioned it earlier too, that it's in our Constitution that everybody that is in these United States be counted, whether you are illegal, whether you're a citizen, whether you're a newborn baby. So briefly go over the 5 questions, Keshia.
There were actually 10 questions.
I'm sorry. Where did I get 5 from? All right. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Sure. So the first is, I'm not going to go through every single question, but
no, never mind then.
Say,
okay.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I will say that the census it just generally asks you about who lives in your household, what the race and ethnicity of the folks that live in your household. And on the race and ethnicity, you also get to choose your country of origin. So I feel like those are the 2 really important items that are on this census.
Right. Okay. All right. Good. Awesome. All right. And all right. So so one of the things that I want to get to, because again, we're going through a process here. We talked about your background. We talked about what you're doing now, and you brought on the fact that you talked on the fact about the you had some obstacles, and one of your obstacles is your fear of public speaking. So now I've had a front row seat in your growth. And again, with this Census 2020 fight, I have seen a remarkable change in you. And I know you went to improv and all that, and it was something that you battled with. But I want you to share with our listeners how you came around a corner in that, because I think that you have turned a corner. You have taken a mic and rallied a crowd. You're very well, your aptitude for this kind of work is amazing, because I've heard you in podcasts talk about legal jargon and legal findings and who, anyway, I've heard you talk about those things, and I'm very impressed as your mother by your transformation. So what did you do to get yourself from this abstract fear of speaking and communicating to what you do now?
Yeah. Well, I just want to start off by saying that, I am still working on, being an effective communicator, and working past my fear. My fear has lessened a bit. There was a time where, I would get up in front of people and I couldn't say 2 words without my voice shaking, without saying without looking completely lost. And so, yeah, I definitely think that I've experienced some growth, and really all I can say, the main thing that I can say that got me around the corner, I would say, is practice. There's that Malcolm Gladwell book that says you need 14,000 hours of practicing something.
I think it's 10,000. Right.
10,000, yeah. To get you to be an expert in something. And yeah, I absolutely believe that. And a lot of the time it was, you just named a bunch of the interviews that I've done, but each of those interviews, I would say that I started off by saying no. I said that I wasn't going to do it, or I didn't want to do it, or it took a while to answer or respond back to the media request. And it's because the fear is still there, but being able to overcome the fear, and resting in the fact that, this is, resting in the fact that this is for a purpose. And yes. I have, and I am working towards the goal of having this democracy be the best that it can be, and that is my goal. That is my purpose, and I will continue to try to overcome fear in the face of purpose.
That is absolutely amazing. I wish there was an audience for me to give you a hand clap. That was absolutely beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. Yes, transform your career by transforming your fear, transforming your practice, and practice and practice and practice, and you will get better. And the way you practice is having the courage to do it. And yes, once you do it, then it will get better. and we'll get better. And yes, I mean, I know that you had turned a corner. I know that you had turned a corner when I saw you take a mic and rally a crowd, because there's one thing to get up on the stage and read a speech to, 50 people or something. But there's another thing to actual rally a crowd. It's a totally different skill set. It takes much more courage, and I've seen you do that. So I know that you've turned, and this was in front of the television cameras too, which makes it even worse. So yes, courage. That's all we need. We need courage, and once we have courage, then we can do the things that are hard. So awesome. All right. Well, we're almost out of time, so let's take our second break. And when we come back, Keshia will tell us how you can get a hold of her if you wanted to have her come on any one of your media or support Common Cause. They're going to be needing some support for their Feet on the Street program for helping people fill out the census. So don't go anywhere. Keep it locked. Turn it up. We'll be right back.
Are you a youth 16 to 29 years of age, struggling with mental health challenges? Are you looking for a space to receive support, resources, and connect with other people living with similar challenges? Then reach out to Lifted by Purpose, an arts-based organization with a focus on mental health. Contact Lifted by Purpose in Toronto, Canada at 416-391-5270 or find us online at www.liftedbypurpose.com.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life Radio Hour and Podcast. I'm your host, life coach Myrna Morris-Young. And in the guest studio today is my daughter, Keshia Marie Morris. She is the Census and Mass Incarceration Project Manager at Common Cause. So in the first segment, we talked on her journey, or our journey as undocumented aliens, from Canada. And then we talked about Keshia's road to Damascus experience when she got her nod or pull from God to do something different. We talked about her process into where she is right now. And in our last segment, we talked about the importance of the census. We talked about the importance of democracy. We talked about the importance of everyone in these United States to be counted, that it is in the Constitution that we should all be counted, and we are counted because the seats in Congress represents the amount of people that are counted in the states. So I want to thank Keshia very much for coming on the show and helping me brag about her, but also sharing some really good information for you that are listening. The topic today was how to transform your energy into your career. And the energy that we're trying to transform is the energy of purpose, the energy of doing something that's meaningful in your life. And I want to leave you with this thought, that there's a difference between living an active life and a purpose-driven life. We all lead active lives. To be active, it does not mean that we have to do anything. We could be mentally active by making plans and setting goals, but not going anywhere. But when we're living a purpose-driven life, where energy and activities has purpose and meaning, so I would like you to pause and reflect the purpose of your chosen career? What is the meaning and purpose of what you're doing right now? What is the quality of the energy that you're expending? When you have a purpose-driven career, the more energy you expend, the more renewed you are. On the other hand, when you're not on purpose, the energy you expend is not renewed. Instead, at the end of the day, you're depleted and diminished. So a purpose-driven life and career alters the course of history, and I hope you find yours. Now, I know that's what Keshia is going after. She hopes to alter history. She hopes to make an impact. She hopes to have her own Nelson Mandela story, and I'm going to be one of her biggest supporters. So I'm very proud of you, Keshia. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on fighting for a democracy. Keep on waving that flag. All right?
Thank you. I will take those marching orders.
What was that?
So I will take those marching orders.
Yes. All right. So how can our listeners get in contact with you and with Common Cause?
For sure. So my name is Keshia Morris. So you can contact me personally directly at kmorris@commoncause.org. You can also visit our webpage at commoncause.org. We have a bunch of blogs and resources available on our page to get to know more about the fight for a fair democracy and also, obviously, a fight for a fair census in 2020. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, as we wrap up, I want to thank you all for being with us to the end. Please show your support by posting a review on iTunes and subscribing to the podcast. If you have any questions or suggestions for topics, you can send me an email at info@myhelp.us. I invite you to join my private Facebook group called Life Coach, and you can also post your questions there. To read a transcript of this interview, head over to blog.myhelp.us, and you will find links there to Common Cause and our sponsor today, Lifted by Purpose. Keshia, thanks again for your time, and any last words?
No, thank you for having me. This was really great.
All right. Well, listen, thanks again for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life podcast. I hope this was a transformational interview. And until next time, namaste.